this is a good vegetarian dish. It's my kind of food. It's tasty. It's got lots of herbs, and it's got some good things in it, some spice. What more does a man need? And some couscous, of course, which I love. First of all, what I've got there is 350 grams of couscous, to which I add 400 mils of warm water and a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. Now this is a baked version. You could just do it a bit simpler by just pouring equal quantity of stock over the top of the couscous and leaving it to rest. Now when I say equal quantity, what I'm talking about is, say, 350 grams and 350 mils. So it's not actual equal quantity, but it's the same measures. And you could just pour that over and leave it to sit. This one is baking, so what I'm doing now is just mixing that really well into that liquid, just making sure there's no lumps in it. So this is a different way of doing couscous. I actually love this way. It comes out nice and fluffy and all those good things. And then what we do is we just throw in a few knobs of butter, which I will just cut up because it's quite hard. We just throw those on the top because it is really buttered couscous, so a couple more. And then into a 180 degree oven, covered with foil for about 15 minutes. Check it after 15 anyway, just to see how you're going. And just do it up tight, please, because that'll keep all the steam in and make sure that it's really good. So 180, 15, 20 minutes, check after 15, and then we will worry about the other things. So we're going to make a really nice little sauce here to go with it, you know, as I said, with a little bit of spice and stuff in it. First of all, some olive oil into a pan. And what I've got here is I've got 1 leek, half an onion, and 4 cloves of garlic, which I'm going to throw into that oil in a minute. And we've also got some caraway seeds, some ground coriander, some smoked paprika, and some harissa, which is obviously a Middle Eastern chili paste. So in we go. As I said, half an onion, 1 leek, and those 4 cloves of garlic. And we're just going to cook that until it's reasonably tender. Then we're going to add a few other little bits and pieces. That sounds fair, doesn't it? All right, let's start thinking about some spices now. First of all, a teaspoon of caraway seeds, a heaped teaspoon of ground coriander, a heaped teaspoon of smoked paprika. This is interesting actually, because normal paprika is dried in the sun, you know, like the Hungarian paprikas are dried in the sun, whereas this is different because it's actually dried over a flame. So they make a fire and they dry it over that, so it gets a lovely smoky flavour. So it's not as, it's being unfair to call normal paprika raw, but it does sort of have a little bit of a raw flavour, whereas this has a far smoother, more mellow flavour. All right, so we just toss that around just to get the cooking process started and to toast those spices. And then what we do is we add a few tablespoons of an Italian sugo or passata. You can use fresh tomato sauce if you just happen to have some. And I'll also add a cup of vegetable stock, some seasonings. I'll take the teaspoon out, salt and pepper. And then, my friends, we are in business. We'll cook that quite gently down until it's rather thick, by which stage the couscous should be ready, and I've got a few other little things to go in it which are really nice. Anyway, we will worry about that when we come back. Now I've got some roasted red capsicum that I'm adding to that. You know, you just buy it in the local supermarket, just in the deli section, and it's just like that. Or you can do your own. I've shown you how to do it before. And to that, and I've had about 3 pieces there which I've cut in decent sized cubes, and some spring onion which I'm finely chopping. Just a couple, it's fine. And I've got a few other things happening here too. I'll just show you there. I've got some celery leaves chopped, I've got some dill, and I've got some Italian parsley. So we've got celery leaves, which are actually quite nice. They have a real, you know, sort of little bit of a bite to them. I really like them, and it's a shame to waste them. So they're there, and the dill, and the parsley, and the capsicum, and the spring onion. So we've got everything happening here. And just out of interest, I'll tell you what is also lovely is deep fried celery leaves. You just throw them into the fryer. You do the same with sliced spinach, and it comes out all crispy and crunchy. And they're pretty. Just make sure you drain them well, though, won't you? So we throw that in there. You just stay there, Rob, because I'm coming back. And a couple of heaped tablespoons of the celery leaves. A really good one of dill, because that's pretty strong, so you don't want quite as much. And a couple of good ones of chopped Italian parsley. And then we'll just mix it in. You want it fairly thick, because remembering that you're putting couscous into it, and if it's really liquid, the couscous will just disappear. So you want a fairly thick sauce. And we will pull out our couscous carefully, because sometimes, you know, some of that steam can escape and burn you. So just be a little careful with this, guys. All right. And let's have a look and see how well we've done. Ah, look at that. Look at that. That is fluffy, isn't it? So now all I'm going to do is turn that sauce off, put the couscous in there. You just fluff it up a bit. Always like that, but look at that. That's beautiful couscous. So you can use that method to use any couscous, because it's nice and fluffy, and it's got nice flavours, you know, sort of slightly buttery and oily, and, you know, all those good things. If you feel around the edges a little bit, not burnt, but it's caught a little, which that has, so use everything else. Just leave that little bit around the edge, because that often happens. But if you don't mind, use it. Rather than waste not, want not. Isn't that what our mothers used to say? Mine did anyway. All right, so we've got a lovely herby mixture here. We've got that nice buttery couscous. We're going to mix it all in together. Don't beat the heck out of it, guys, because you don't want the couscous to completely collapse. You want it to be fluffy for sure, and you want it to be mixed in, but not a mush. All right, let's just have a taste, make sure our seasoning's all right. Goodness, I like that. That is a good dish. Lovely flavours. Lovely flavours. And it's my old argument, if you're going to cook vegetarian food, for goodness sake, it has to have lots of flavour, and this has got some beautiful flavours in it. You can taste the spices through it, but you can also taste that red capsicum and the bits and pieces. Ah, it's good. And the herbs, they just have that little touch of magic, as they always do, don't they? Now, I'm just going to leave it like it is, maybe put some herbs on top, but you definitely could sprinkle some yogurt over the top. I might even do that actually, to be quite honest. Just some plain yogurt, really nice, just to give it a little bit of flavour. Anyway, as I said, a great vegetarian dish, lots of flavour, not too expensive, and easy to do. There's something comforting about crumbed cutlets, isn't there? There's an old-fashioned favourite, which I reckon deserves another 15 minutes of fame, as long as you do them yourself. Don't buy them pre-done. Not casting any aspersions on our butchers, but I always like to see the lamb that's going into my crumb cutlets. And of course I'm serving them with mash and peas, because that's what you do. First of all, we've got some beautifully trimmed lamb cutlets there, as you can see. A little bit of fat on them, but mainly trimmed. And I'm just going to batten them out a bit, including the bone. All right, so we batten those out, and just, sorry guys, I'm just going to pick up my pot, which also decided to go a bit skew with while I was doing that. And the crumbing, now we've crumbed stuff here 1,000 times, so all we do is dip it into flour, then into egg wash. Now the egg wash is a combination of milk and a couple of eggs, so about half a cup of milk, a couple of eggs just beaten up, and lastly into some crumbs. Now I'm just using plain crumbs here, but you certainly could add some herbs to them. You could add some parmesan, freshly grated parmesan to it, so you can play around with that. I'm just sort of doing the real simple old-fashioned straightforward thing today, so not anything fancy. And there we've got those, and just while I'm doing that, let me just turn my pan on. All right, and what we need also is some olive oil. I always cook crumbed food in olive oil. It's just got a far better taste. You have to use a really expensive one, and what you want is a thin layer of olive oil and heat it. Don't put 3 tons, and you will end up with almost all that is still there, so it's not too much oil, because you will have it hot, and when you put the cutlets in, they will be sealed instantly, so they won't soak up any of that oil. And then we just crumb them, making sure they're well coated with the egg wash before we put them into the crumbs. Now if you like, once you've crumbed them, you can throw them into the fridge, not on top of each other, on a tray or on a plate that they sit separately, and leave them for half an hour just to make sure that those crumbs set. I don't normally bother with that, but it's just a thought. I'm saying it's an old-fashioned thing that often works, but I always find that if you leave it in too long, the meat juices will weep, so you don't end up with a really good covering anyway. So if you're going to do it, half an hour tops, certainly no more. All right, we've got half a dozen here, so we'll just do those at the moment. And let's just start putting them into our oil, because I want it hot, but I don't want it burning or smoking. So into the oil. Righty-ho. Now, the mash. What I've got here is just a few large potatoes which I've cut into chunks, and I'm just going to drain that, and I've cooked them until they're tender. And I'll just get rid of this Sorry, guys. And we'll drain those, and I'm going to do an Irish mash, which is a little bit different. First of all, drain them really well. The potatoes, that is. Gee, I'm noisy today, aren't I? I've got musical... I just did it again. Sorry, guys. So you just turn that back on and you drain them. Now, I'll turn this down a bit because I do want to seal them well, but I don't want to overcook the blessed things. The other thing, you need to cook them reasonably fast because obviously we want them pink. So that's important. And to this I then add some milk, some salt and pepper, a little bit more salt and pepper. And also a decent amount of spring onions. So this is our Irish mash. We're also going to add a good dollop of butter. And we're just going to mash it. We can mash it in that pot along with that milk which is heating up. And to finish, good dollop of cream. Now you can leave the cream and the butter out if you must. I prefer you didn't, but you can. And we better start thinking about getting these cutlets out because I reckon they're ready. Because they don't take long because I've battened them out. I just need something to drain them on, so I've got some paper towels here. And let's turn that off and whip our cutlets out. And with our Irish mash, which I'm just going to finish off now. And all we then need to do is just cook some peas, throw some frozen peas into the pot, along with a good pinch of sugar and a couple of sprigs of mint. Just add some lovely flavour. We're looking good. Now don't ever put this in the food processor. Just mash it by hand. Keep it a little bit chunky. All right. I've got stuff everywhere, haven't I? So let's just turn my board over. Grab that. Along with some of this lovely mash. Now when they make this in Ireland, they also often put a big dollop of butter in the centre as well, but we won't do that. I can imagine I'll get all these emails saying, Ian, what are you trying to do to us? I'm not trying to do anything, guys, I promise you, I really am not. But even I understand that that's a bit over the top. And we'll just do that, and we'll just wait for our peas, which won't take long. You could also serve a wedge of lemon with that if you like. That'd be really nice, just to squeeze over those lamb cutlets. That's another thing you could actually put in the crummy. You could put some fresh, some finely grated lemon zest. Would be really nice. And with the peas, I only want them to come back to the rapid boil. As soon as they're back to the rapid boil, I always reckon frozen peas are ready. If you like them a little bit more cooked, you certainly can cook them for a few minutes, but that's my personal liking. Alrighty, sorry, I'm going down to my colander again, and I'll just put those over the back out of the way. And we'll just move that, whack those in there. Once again, optional. I always think they need a little bit of butter. Mix that around just until that butter melts, and then we're in business. We have our minted peas, our Irish mash, and some beautiful crumbed cutlets. Now that, my friends, is good Aussie tucker.